Will this transformation cause Chobei's death? Before we get to today's video, I want to take a moment to talk about Patreon. That's right, we are on Patreon now, and we have a bunch of tiers with a bunch of great rewards. You can subscribe and get things like early access to all reactions, depending on your tier, depends on which reactions you get early access to. You can vote on polls exclusive to patrons that will help determine future reaction series and more. You will get to just have various choices in terms of like getting to choose future reactions I react to, getting to choose first impressions I check out, all kinds of different rewards, and possibly more coming in the future. We're still new at this. We're still figuring things out. It's a process. It's a process. But we have multiple tiers, so whatever you would be able to donate, if you're able and willing to donate, is appreciated. It helps me out, it helps the channel out, it helps us grow. It's going to help just, standardly. It's just something new to check out. Plus, if you like getting the reactions early, that's also a plus. But it is optional. If you're unable to do it, that's completely fine. All reactions will come to YouTube just a little bit later, a week later or so. So, that all being said, thank you as always so much, and let's get on with today's video. With that being said, hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Season 2, Episode 2 of Hell's Paradise. So, last episode, we kind of just were like reintroducing things, showing where the characters are now, and getting started with our first fight, which happens to be against, or between Gabimaru and Chobei. We also got introduced to some new characters at the beginning. One of them is more straight-laced and seems to be a kind of a rule follower type of character. The other one is a little more lax and seems to possibly be queer. At least he was kind of being flirty with another guy, so very possible. And honestly, I think that would be pretty cool. But either way, yeah, Gabimaru is still without his memories. He's kind of dealing with the just aftermath of forgetting everything past a certain point and having to be told all of it again, at least from the perspectives of those he's around at the moment. And they don't know everything. They only know a certain few bits of information. So even then, his perspective on things right now is just skewed and biased. Not out of intent. Excuse me. Not out of intent, but out of just the knowledge that these characters have about him. If he were with Sagiri, there would be a lot more. And who knows if he would have believed and everything. But that's not really a factor at the moment. While their group is traveling, they end up coming in contact with Chobei and his brother. And Chobei, being Chobei, let's be honest, attacks. It leads into this fight between him and Gabimaru, and although Gabimaru does multiple things that should have and would have killed a normal person, Chobei is not normal anymore. Because he's been affected by the weirdness, we'll say, of this land. He's gained power over his Tao, and is able to regenerate and even transform his body in ways that were, that basically are non-human. And we see at the very end, part of that is like starting this transformation that changes his look pretty completely. You can still tell it's him, but it's like he's become a monster. And I think that there's a narrative point to this, because Chobei is a character who, out of necessity for staying alive and protecting his brother, has always had to become a monster. He's had to become strong and vicious and violent and terrible in a lot of ways. To a point where he's done crazy shit, like actively scarring and hurting himself, taking over a bandit group, and so on and so forth. And his brother, because it's how they were raised, has ultimate trust in him because he's always been there for him. And we did see this in season 1. We did see Chobei like seemingly leave his brother to fend for himself at one point, but then it reveals that he just went to go get a bigger weapon to protect and save his brother. Chobei is always there for him. Like, you have to admit that. He's loyal as fuck. And he does very clearly love his brother. They love each other very much. And like I said, though, narratively for his character, Chobei is willing to become a monster whenever needed. And in this case, quite literally. It's not even so much that he sees Gabimaru as a threat at this point, because he doesn't really have a reason to. He sees Gabimaru as a challenge for him. And specifically as someone who is trying to accomplish the same goal as him. He sees him as a roadblock as well. That's why he goes after him. Not because Gabimaru, is an enemy of his particularly, but because it's more advantageous for him to attack him, to take him out. And again, if not for Tao, Chobei would be very fucking dead. Multiple times over. Gabimaru is unquestionably naturally stronger than Chobei. But there are two factors to take into account with this fight. One, Chobei does have the Tao control now, which is basically buffing him. His stats are getting a massive boost, and he's a lot stronger than he normally would be. Also, just able to withstand more, because he has the healing factor that is pretty damn strong. But the other factor we also have to take into account is that Gabimaru is not at his best. Because of his mind being clouded, because of his Tao being clouded, he is not fighting at his max strength. He is debuffed. And that is causing him, that and Chobei's buffs are causing them to be on more equal footing. I would still say Gabimaru is still above Chobei in terms of raw power and strength. But again, Chobei having this regeneration is what is also equalizing them quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see where this fight goes. Because it could go in a... excuse me. It could go in a number of directions. And honestly, I could see Chobei dying here. I don't know what that would do with his brother. Like, I don't know how he would react to that. Probably not well, but I could see this being kind of Chobei's last stand. And again, for the narrative purpose of literally becoming a monster instead of figuratively this time. I feel like it would be a natural conclusion to his character arc. And I'd be very curious to see, like, what his last words might be, or how he goes out, if he gets, like, a little last moment with his brother, stuff like that. I'm very, very fascinated to see if this is his end. And if it's not, I wonder how this fight's going to end. Because obviously, Gabi's not going to die. He has, like, no chance of dying. He's the main character. And we know, like, the entire series is working to get him back to his wife. So, he's got plot armor. And then other characters, I'm just not sure what's going to happen at this point. Because here's the thing. If this is the final season, which it, from, again, everything I've heard, it probably is going to be. If this is the final season, then how many other character deaths might we have? And I actually have a legitimate thought on that. I think we might only have a couple more. And in terms of our main cast, 1 or 2 max. I think if any others we have will be those coming in. The other Asagiri coming in, or the ninja. I don't think of our main... Oh, plus, the bad guys, too. The Tensei. I don't think I think most of the rest of our main cast are going to make it out of here. Because there's just not much of any other way I see any of them dying. Obviously, Sagiri's going to make it out. Yuzuriha's going to make it out. I don't see Nuragai or the Master. I can't remember his name right now. I don't see either of them dying. I don't think it would make sense to kill off either of them. Blade Dragon and his Proctor, his Asagiri, they are, I think, the only 2 who I could reasonably see dying out of our main cast, outside of maybe Chobei here. Although if Chobei dies, his brother might end up committing suicide. Like, and I don't mean that in any, like, crazy way. I mean, like, pretty legitimately because of how connected they are. So that's like 4 characters max I could see out of our main cast dying. Then, of course, again, the Tensei. The 2 new Asagiri coming, I don't think are going to end up dying. But I could be wrong on that. And then as for the other ninja coming, I mean, I don't know. I don't know at this point. But yeah, I don't think... I think we've kind of gotten past the big shocking part of the series where it's like, oh, we're gonna like have all these characters just very uneventfully, or in some cases eventfully, die as a way to like shock you into what this series is going to be about. We're gonna front load all of that and then start like cutting back on it as we go further in. That's the vibe I'm getting from this series. That all of the crazy deaths and everything we were seeing were mostly there to front load the series with shock value. Which is completely fine. I have no issue with that at all. But it just makes me wonder, okay, where are we going to go with this then? So, I guess we'll have to just watch and see. Before we get into this, though, I do want to really quickly remind you that we do have a Patreon now. We started at the beginning of the year, and on the Patreon, we have a bunch of reactions for you in early access. Joining the Patreon allows you to have early access to various types of reactions depending on your tier. The $5 tier, for example, gets you early access to movie reactions. The $10 tier adds in series reactions as well, and each tier above that will add in another type of reaction that you get early access to. There's other rewards too, such as getting to vote on exclusive polls. You get to choose something for me to check out every month as a first impression, and so on and so forth. You can check out the comprehensive list on the Patreon itself, which is linked to in the description below. And if you have any other questions or anything about that, please feel free to ask here or there or wherever. It's all optional, though. You don't have to do it if you can't or just don't want to for whatever reason. But any bit helps. It does help me just continue to run the channel. And considering this is something I do full time, it does help me just in other ways as well. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And let's get started with the reaction. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And welcome to the Afterthoughts, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So yeah, like I said in the reaction, I really like that we didn't take too long to for Gabi to get his memories back. They could have easily taken like half of this season. Like, I've seen shows do this before where a character loses their memories or something else like this happens, and it takes forever for things to get fixed. It's something that's always bothered me. Because I feel like stuff like this, like, is a good, like, tense kind of thing to bring into a series. But at the same time, dragging it out too long just gets boring after a while, if nothing else. It just kind of gets boring. It starts to lose kind of its luster, and the reasons for it existing in the first place, the reasons for having that kind of thing, are kind of lost too. Because there's only so much you can do with a memory loss plot point. There's only so much that it, like, leads to give. And in this case, obviously, it shows us a bit more of what Gabimaru is, like, what he, at the beginning of the series, saw himself as. The Hollow. It shows us, like, what Gabi used to be before he fell in love with Yui. And it's indicative of where he's come to as a person since then. And how Yui truly did change his life. Which also adds to the precedence that she's not just an illusion in his mind. That she is real. It shows how much his life, his personality, his strength of character and everything has changed because of her. And that's not something that would happen through a genjutsu. Like, honestly, it wouldn't even make sense, because if this were a lie crafted by the chief, it would be terrible. It would be stupid, because it would be entirely going against what the chief would want from Gabi. The chief wants Gabi to be the Hollow. But if this were, like, a genjutsu, it would literally be going against that entire idea. It would be turning Gabi away from being the Hollow. It would be ruining all of the chief's plans. So, yeah, it doesn't really hold water when you think about it within the full context. And I know a lot of the times these characters don't have that full context. We as viewers see more than the characters at any given point do. And that's kind of important to remember. It's why some characters may not recognize certain things or may not, like, notice another character acting strange or whatnot. We have a different viewpoint. But we also have like the closure to the fight in this episode between him and Chobei, and it ends because it needs to for multiple reasons. Chobei starts to lose track of himself. Becoming the monster allows him to be strong, allows him to have this insane regeneration, even more so than outside of it. But he's losing control of his Tao. The Tao is overtaking him. And it's starting to get to a point where he basically is going to become this kind of like mindless killing machine, which he doesn't want. And Toma clearly doesn't want. Toma steps in the way, gets hurt, but is like not killed or like really, really badly injured or anything. But Toma steps in the way and is able to convince his brother to come out of that and, you know, come back to reality. Unfortunately, because Gabi's not going to stop due to his mind being shattered at the moment, May has to step in and cause, you know, this big, basically, crater to open up in the ground, which Chobei ends up falling into after, like, pushing his brother out of the way. And it destabilizes Gabi enough to be able to stop him. Because Gabi was using up all his Tao and was going to die. Because of course he was. Because again, this is the Hollow. This is someone who has no sense of self-preservation, no sense of value to his life. He sees himself as a tool, a weapon. And obviously that's bad. But our two groups end up meeting up together. And I would personally say the best part of this episode happens upon their reconverging. There's a lot of people out there who seem to be kind of repulsed at any moment in a series that isn't action-based. They'll call it boring and slow and just uninteresting. I mean, look at how people treat Frieren. The Frieren haters are that's all their argument. Not that it's, you know, bad or anything, because even most of the haters don't even think that. They just think it's boring because there's not action 24/7. Because most of the time it's focusing on character development and depth and story, which are just more important than action anyway. But, you know, it's like people who also hate on One Punch Man Season 3, even though the story and the character work is better in that than the previous two seasons combined, in my opinion, mind you. But all they care about is the animation, the action not looking as good. So, I mean, it's all subjective. You can be into a series for whatever reason you like. If animation is your number one reason for watching a series, you're entitled to that. I don't have to agree or understand it. I don't have to side with you on that, though. Just keep that in mind. Because it's all subjective, every single person is allowed to see things differently. And I just don't have to agree with all the people who are like putting animation at that high of a level. I just don't. And it's the same with video games, too. It's like, I don't think that graphics in video games are that important either. I don't think that really matters. But either way, I'm saying that this scene is the best in the episode because it's the most thematically and like overall story important to what we saw here. Out of everything in this episode, and even last episode, I would say, the scene with Saguri, like, holding down Gabi and using her Tao to heal his, while also, like, reminding him of what's important, especially and most notably his wife. Like, that scene is the best scene in the episode, and both of these first two episodes, best scene of the season so far, because it is so like important to what this series really is about. Like, this series isn't about the action or the craziness that's happening here. It's about humanity and how even people who have gone through just horrible situations and brainwashing and trauma can find that humanity within themselves and through the love of others. Like, character depth and all is the main focus of this series. The action and the crazy characters and like horror elements and set pieces, like, that's all just set dressing. That's all just there to make this series fun and exciting. But seeing like Sagari's completely non-romantic love for Gabimaru, I'll just say it, like, there is love there. Like, she says that he's a close ally, but like the better word would be friend at this point. And her just smiling like so genuinely at him, being so open and kind and gentle and heartfelt. Like, she needed to like confront him in exactly that manner too, I feel, because that's what allowed him to like really understand, for it to get through, because that's the same kind of personality his wife has. Yui is so kind and gentle and like friendly and sweet and all that. Trying to find other words to fit in with this. And that's what Gabi fell in love with. And Sagari knows this because she did her research and everything. Plus, she's heard how Gabi like has talked about his wife and all. So she knows exactly how to approach him with kindness. She has to pin him down, yes. But that's only because he wasn't cooperating. She needed to get him into a position where he would kind of be forced to listen. Where he would be forced to, you know, make that contact that was necessary for her Tao to heal his. And she showed him that gentleness and kindness. And that is what helped him come out of it. And again, that's like the most thematically fitting scene we've had this season so far with what this series is about. That humanity. And we got a little bit after that, of course, with Gabi having started to get his memories back, remembering specifically his wife and apologizing for the way he's been acting. And they bring up the idea of the genjutsu thing, and again, like I was saying, it just doesn't really track in any way. Doesn't make sense. But it's shut down anyways, because Gabi, like, comes to realize there's so many small details that would have no reason being in a genjutsu by his master, Yui's father and everything, that it would actually be like counterproductive. So Gabi knows that it's like, with those little details, with those little memories, he's like 100% sure that Yui is real. And we as viewers, of course, are too. Like, there's that little question last season when this idea was brought up. We of course, are like, led into questioning for a second. Is like, oh, could she be fake? But we realized pretty quickly it's like this isn't that kind of show that would like take that away, because that's literally our main character's entire motivation. Gabi's entire motivation is centered around that, and it wouldn't make sense from a writing perspective either to have her end up being like revealed to be an illusion. So I think this was handled exceptionally well. And again, I love that a lot of these conflicts have already been resolved, because dragging it out would have just made it feel cheapened. So, yeah, this was a really good one. The ending is kind of ominous with Chobei being approached by one of the Tensen. May's aging every time she uses her powers is fascinating as well. And I know, let me just touch on this. It'll be like the last thing I talk about. You know, there's going to be some people out there who are like weirded out by this entire factor. And probably were in season 1 as well. It's like, oh, you have this character who's introduced to us as this like little girl, like what, 8 years old maybe, and like throughout this series she starts getting older and older and like becomes an adult, and they like point out her looks and stuff, and it's like I can see some people finding that uncomfortable, but you also have to realize within the context she's like a Tensen herself, and her childlike form wasn't her true form. That's like a weakened form for her. That much is very clear at this point. She's every time she's using her power, she's reverting more and more to her true form. That's more what we're going for. And yes, it's still, anime weirdness. It's still kind of weird, kind of creepy. But honestly, there's a lot worse. Anime has done a lot worse than something like this. Because it doesn't, like, when she's a child and everything, it never sexualizes her. In fact, when it's, like, implied that the other Tensen and everything would use her for their sexual rituals and all, it's actually made out to be a really horrific and gross thing. Especially since it's very clearly shown or said to be against her will. And it's made out very clearly to be bad. And something you're not supposed to root for. It only actually starts like saying anything about her looks and everything once she becomes an adult. And honestly, it's only Blade Dragon who's really saying it. Like the others are noticing like how different she is and how different she looks and all that, but it's like Blade Dragon who's like the one saying like, "Oh, look at her now" and all. So it's like you have to take within the context of everything. Um it's like the quote unquote sexuality used in Dan to Dan. It's like it's not fan service, and it's not there for fan service. Like there's shows and everything, and even this show as well that does have fan service in it with like Yuzuriha and whatnot. But like with Dan to Dan, especially, it's not meant to be seen that way. It's actually you're meant to be grossed out. You're meant to be like upset at it. It's meant to be shown as assault. And that's kind of the thematic point of Dan to Dan to a degree. One of the thematic points, at least. And with this, like a thematic point of May is clearly her autonomy being taken from her, being represented through this aging thing. She's being made to be like a little child who doesn't have any autonomy, who doesn't have any level of self-governance, I guess is a way to put it. And the more she utilizes her powers in this is more her taking back control, and as such becoming more of her true form, more of an adult, who has that autonomy, who has that level of control over one's own self. It's like these themes and everything are very noticeable. It's not like you can just entirely miss these. But some people like latch onto like the very base view of things. It's like they only see things at their most one-dimensional, and don't like look past that to try and like see like, oh, what is this scene actually saying? What is actually being represented here? This isn't like Tamaki in Fire Force. This isn't fan service for the sake of fan service. This isn't fan service that actively destroys and hurts the theming and messaging of the character and hurts the overall enjoyment of the series. This, again, isn't Tamaki. This is not even fan service. So, yeah. And again, Yuzuriha already exists in this series. She's there for fan service. She's there to be sexy, to be ogled. And again, there's a meaning to that. She's a kunoichi. Like, this is literally something she's been trained to do, to flaunt her body and use it as, you know, a trap, basically, to lure in unsuspecting victims. Like, that's literally her thing. And so, there's also an explanation for that, outside of just for sexual gratification. And again, Blade Dragon just commenting on like characters' boob size and whatnot, like Sagari's boob size, is just Blade Dragon being him. Like he has no filter. He has no filter. He has no like little voice in his head telling him when to shut up. He's just unabashedly himself. He says the first thing that comes to his mind always. And, I mean, he probably likes boobs. Like, a lot of people like boobs. I mean, he's not trying to assault anyone. He's just pointing out that Sagari has big boobs. Which, yeah, she does. Her skill and everything is also acknowledged in this episode, so it's not just objectifying her and treating her like she's just, you know, a desirable object rather than a person. So it's like, yeah. But, you know, again, a lot of people who like look at this from a one-dimensional standpoint either just don't see this kind of stuff or refuse to. And there are people who absolutely refuse to see this stuff. Who, like, will just complain about any semblance of sexuality in a series. And there are shows that have, like, really bad fan service that do hurt things. Especially when it's, like, you know, when it actually is objectifying. And not used in any kind of, like, good way. Or better way, at least. There's plenty of that. I mean, hey, the pervert character with the nosebleeds and hard eyes and stuff is a trope in anime for a reason. A terrible trope. That's an example of, like, a character who basically facilitates bad fan service. So, yeah. Anyway, enough of my incoherent rambling on this subject, because I'm not good at talking, typically, and I feel like I'm just kind of, like, going around in circles with things, talking about all this. So, yeah. Moving on. There's not really much of anything else to talk about. Like, it was a pretty simplistic episode. And it's just a matter of where do we go from here? So I guess we'll find out next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, no spoilers. But for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.